The Galactic Assembly's miscalculation. The Galactic Assembly had perfected the art of superiority over 3,000 years. Their crystal spires reached toward distant stars from the capital world of Nexus Prime, each tower representing a different aspect of their advanced civilization. The Assembly governed 47 star systems with mathematical precision, categorizing every species they encountered with cold efficiency. Administrator Zeph Carlin stood before the massive evaluation chamber, his 6 arms moving across holographic displays with practiced ease. The Kethtai were known throughout the galaxy for their analytical minds and their ability to process vast amounts of data simultaneously. Today's session would determine the fate of yet another primitive species that had somehow managed to stumble into interstellar communication. The blue-green planet appeared on the central display, rotating slowly in three-dimensional glory. Earth, they called it. The third planet from a yellow dwarf star located in what the Assembly considered the galactic backwater. Initial scans had revealed a species barely capable of basic space travel, still using chemical propulsion and nuclear energy like children playing with fire. Status report on the Sol, 3 inhabitants, Zeph commanded, his primary voice resonating through the chamber while his secondary vocal cords added harmonic undertones that conveyed his emotional state of mild boredom. Senior Analyst Mora Vex, a crystalline being whose body reflected light in prismatic patterns, materialized her findings in the air between them. The humans show standard biological markers for a pre-Type 1 civilization. They have achieved basic satellite technology and primitive space stations. Their mathematics are functional but limited. Most concerning is their complete lack of unified planetary governance. Zeph's third arm gestured dismissively. Typical. Another fractured world mind trying to reach beyond its grasp. Energy output analysis. Barely registering on our sensors. They still burn fossil fuels for primary energy production, with some nuclear and renewable sources. Their total planetary energy output is less than what our smallest orbital stations produce in a standard cycle. The Assembly's evaluation protocol had been refined over millennia. They measured civilizations across 7 key metrics: energy production, computational capacity, genetic mastery, dimensional understanding, collective consciousness development, temporal manipulation, and what they termed galactic readiness. Species that scored below threshold levels were marked for observation and potential future contact. Those who exceeded expectations were fast-tracked for membership consideration. Humans, it seemed, failed spectacularly on every metric. Computational systems? Zeph inquired, though he already suspected the answer. Primitive silicon-based processors using binary logic. They've achieved some advancement in what they call artificial intelligence, but it's crude compared to our quantum consciousness networks. Their most advanced systems would be equivalent to our basic household management units from 15 centuries ago. Ambassador Thek Mendel, representing the militant Dracorian Empire, rumbled his disapproval from his position at the chamber's edge. His reptilian features showed the characteristic signs of disgust that his species displayed when encountering inferior technology. Why are we even discussing these creatures? Their ships barely qualify as spacefaring vessels. Our merchant class possesses better technology than their military forces. Protocol demands evaluation of all species that achieve interstellar communication, Zeph replied, though his tone suggested he shared Thek's sentiment. However, I see no reason to extend the process unnecessarily. Mora, what is your recommendation? The crystalline analyst's form shifted to a deeper blue, indicating certainty. Standard classification as developing non-threat. Maintain observational distance. Reevaluate in 500 standard years. Likelihood of significant advancement within that timeframe, less than 12%. Zeph was about to formalize the decision when a junior technician's alarm chimed through the chamber. The sound was so unusual that all conversation stopped. In the Assembly's 3,000-year history, interruptions during formal evaluations were virtually unheard of. Forgive the intrusion, Administrator, the technician, a young Vorthak named Kess, transmitted nervously. We're receiving some unusual data from our deep space monitoring stations. Define unusual, Zeph commanded, his irritation evident in the sharp harmonics of his voice. Gravitational anomalies in 17 different sectors. The patterns don't match any known natural phenomena or technological signatures in our databases. They're subtle, almost imperceptible, but they're definitely artificial. Ambassador Thuck's scales shifted to a deeper red, a sign of heightened interest. Show us. The chamber's displays shifted to show a three-dimensional map of known space. Scattered across the galaxy were tiny markers indicating the anomalies Kess had detected. They appeared random at first glance, but as the display zoomed out to show the full galactic perspective, a pattern began to emerge. These positions, Mora observed, her crystalline form brightening with analytical excitement, they correspond to major trade routes and communication relay points. Someone or something has been monitoring our activities. Zeph felt a chill run through his neural networks. The implications were staggering. If an unknown civilization had the capability to place monitoring devices throughout assembly space without detection, their technological assessment protocols might be fundamentally flawed. How long have these anomalies been active? He asked. Kess consulted his data streams. Based on gravitational resonance dating, approximately 47 standard years. But Administrator, there's something else. The energy signatures, while incredibly faint, show characteristics consistent with the Sol 3 system stellar radiation patterns. Silence fell over the chamber like a heavy blanket. The idea that the primitive humans they had just dismissed as insignificant could be responsible for galaxy-spanning surveillance was almost too absurd to consider. Yet the data was undeniable. Recall our field observation teams, Zeph ordered, his voice tight with concern. I want full sensor sweeps of all monitoring stations. If these humans have been watching us, we need to know how much they've learned. Over the following days, the truth began to emerge in fragments that shattered the Assembly's understanding of human capabilities. The gravitational anomalies were indeed monitoring devices, but they operated on principles that the Assembly's finest minds couldn't fully comprehend. Instead of using conventional sensors that could be detected and analyzed, the humans had created a network of gravitational lenses that could observe activities across vast distances without emitting any detectable energy signatures. More disturbing was the realization that every major assembly decision over the past 4 decades had likely been observed and recorded. Trade negotiations, military movements, technological developments, even private communications between member worlds had been monitored with perfect clarity. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief representative to what humans had quietly dubbed Project Galactic Watch, finally made contact with the Assembly through channels that bypassed their entire security network. Her message was simple and terrifying in its implications: we've been listening. We've been learning. We've been preparing. The human delegation that arrived at Nexus Prime did so in a ship that defied every law of physics the Assembly thought they understood. It appeared without generating the usual spatial distortions associated with faster-than-light travel. It possessed no visible propulsion system, no energy emissions, and no technological signatures that their sensors could identify. It simply materialized in high orbit as if it had always been there. Dr. Vasquez herself was equally enigmatic. A woman of perhaps 50 Earth years, she possessed an intelligence that seemed to operate on multiple levels simultaneously. Her technological augmentations were so subtle that they were almost invisible, yet her capabilities clearly exceeded those of even the Assembly's most advanced cybernetic beings. You've been evaluating us, she said during their first formal meeting, her voice carrying an undertone of amusement that made the assembled diplomats deeply uncomfortable. We've been evaluating you as well. The difference is that we've been honest about our limitations while you've been blind to your own. Ambassador Thuck, still struggling to process the reality of human technological superiority, challenged her directly. Your species barely achieved chemical rockets 50 years ago. How do you explain the impossible advancement we're witnessing? Dr. Vasquez smiled, and in that expression was the confidence of someone who held all the strategic advantages. We learned that the universe rewards patience more than pride. While you've been congratulating yourselves on your superiority, we've been quietly solving problems you didn't even know existed. She gestured, and the chamber's displays shifted to show images that left the assembly representative speechless. Massive structures hidden in Earth's asteroid belt, construction projects on the dark side of Earth's moon that rivaled the assembly's greatest engineering achievements, and most shocking of all, evidence of human colonies in star systems that the assembly had never even detected. Your evaluation protocols, Dr. Vasquez continued, are based on the assumption that advancement follows predictable patterns. You measure energy output, computational power, and technological signatures because those are the paths your civilizations followed. Humanity chose a different approach. We focused on efficiency, subtlety, and understanding rather than raw power and obvious display. The revelation that followed changed everything the assembly thought they knew about intelligence and civilization. Humans hadn't failed to develop the technologies that other species considered essential. They had deliberately chosen alternative approaches that were more elegant, more sustainable, and ultimately more powerful. Their energy production appeared primitive because they had mastered fusion and zero-point extraction without the massive infrastructure other species required. Their computers seemed basic because they had developed quantum biological hybrid systems that operated on principles the assembly couldn't detect with conventional sensors. Most humbling of all was the realization that humanity's apparent disunity was actually a strength. Where other species had achieved advancement through rigid hierarchical systems and collective consciousness, humans had embraced diversity and individual creativity as driving forces for innovation. Their fractured political systems, which the assembly had seen as weakness, had actually produced a resilience and adaptability that unified civilizations couldn't match. As the first part of humanity's revelation concluded, Administrator Zeph found himself staring at a fundamental question that threatened to shake the assembly's entire worldview. If they had been so wrong about humanity, what else might they have missed in their 3,000 years of galactic superiority? The reckoning and recognition. The emergency session of the full assembly convened within hours of Dr. Vasquez's initial revelations. Representatives from all 47 member worlds filled the great amphitheater on Nexus Prime, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of concern that hadn't been heard since the Void Wars 3 centuries earlier. Administrator Zeph stood at the center of the crystalline speaking platform, his 6 arms moving through data streams with unprecedented urgency. The holographic displays surrounding him showed the true scope of humanity's activities, a network of observation posts, research stations, and colonies that spanned the galaxy, all operating with such sophisticated stealth technology that the assembly's best sensors had detected nothing. The situation is beyond critical, Zeph announced, his harmonic voice carrying across the vast chamber. We are not dealing with a primitive species seeking admission to our community. We are confronting a civilization that has been studying us with the same clinical detachment we once reserved for them. Senior Counselor Ari Zen of the Photonic Collective materialized her concern in waves of shifting light. How is it possible that our intelligence networks detected nothing? We have monitoring stations throughout known space. Dr. Vasquez, who had been granted unprecedented access to address the full assembly, stepped forward. Her human form seemed impossibly small among the giants, energy beings, and crystalline entities that surrounded her, yet her presence dominated the chamber. Your monitoring stations are impressive, she began, her voice amplified by technology that the assembly's technicians still couldn't identify. They're designed to detect the kind of civilization you understand, one that announces itself through energy emissions, gravitational distortions, and quantum signatures. We chose to develop technologies that work with natural forces rather than against them. She gestured, and the chamber's displays shifted to show Earth's solar system as it truly existed. The asteroid belt wasn't a collection of random rocks but a carefully orchestrated construction zone where massive structures were being assembled using gravitational manipulation techniques that required no visible infrastructure. Mars, which the assembly had dismissed as a dead world, revealed itself as the hub of a terraforming project that had been progressing steadily for decades. Your species, Dr. Vasquez continued, measure advancement by how much energy you can generate and consume. We measure it by how efficiently we can achieve our goals with minimal energy expenditure. While you've been building bigger and more obvious displays of power, we've been learning to work with the fundamental forces of reality. The revelation that humanity had achieved practical mastery over gravity, space-time manipulation, and quantum mechanics through approaches that bypassed conventional physics sent shock waves through the assembly. Their own scientists had spent millennia developing technologies that required massive energy inputs and generated easily detectable signatures. Humans had apparently solved the same problems using elegant solutions that were nearly invisible to external observation. Ambassador Thek, his reptilian pride wounded but his warrior's instincts recognizing a superior opponent, asked the question that everyone was thinking: what do you want from us? Dr. Vasquez's response was unexpected in its simplicity: we want to learn from each other. The concept seemed almost revolutionary. For 3,000 years, the assembly had operated on the principle that advanced civilizations naturally became mentors to primitive ones. The idea of mutual learning between equals had never been seriously considered, largely because the assembly had never encountered a civilization that matched their capabilities while following a completely different developmental path. Your technologies, Dr. Vasquez explained, are impressive in their scope and power. Our technologies are effective in their subtlety and efficiency. We believe that combining our approaches could benefit everyone. Over the following weeks, humanity's true capabilities continued to unfold like a flower blooming in fast-forward. Their ships, when they chose to reveal them, demonstrated propulsion systems that bent spacetime in ways that made the assembly's fastest vessels seem sluggish. Their colonies, hidden throughout the galaxy, had been conducting research projects that solved problems the assembly's finest minds had been working on for centuries. Most remarkable was humanity's approach to consciousness and intelligence. While other species had either maintained individual awareness or merged into collective minds, humans had developed something unprecedented, a voluntary network of consciousness that allowed individuals to share knowledge and experience without sacrificing personal identity. This hybrid approach had accelerated their technological and cultural development in ways that neither pure individualism nor collective consciousness could achieve. The turning point came when Dr. Vasquez demonstrated humanity's solution to the Nexus paradox, a mathematical problem that had puzzled assembly scientists for over a millennium. The paradox involved the relationship between energy, consciousness, and reality manipulation. Every known civilization had approached it as a computational challenge, requiring vast processing power to model and solve. Humanity had solved it through what they called intuitive mathematics, a synthesis of human creativity, artificial intelligence, and quantum processing that produced results faster than the assembly's most advanced systems could even formulate the questions. More importantly, their solution opened pathways to technologies that the assembly had never imagined possible. You've been thinking about advancement as a ladder, Dr. Vasquez explained to a gathering of the assembly's top scientists. Each step building on the previous one, with clear markers of progress. We've been thinking about it as a web, with multiple pathways leading to the same destinations and new connections creating possibilities that linear thinking never reveals. The political implications were staggering. The assembly had built its entire governmental structure on the premise that they were the most advanced civilization in known space. Their authority derived from their technological superiority and their role as mentors to lesser species. The revelation that humanity had quietly surpassed them in most areas while remaining completely undetected suggested that their understanding of galactic civilization was fundamentally flawed. Emergency sessions were called. Ancient protocols were dusted off and examined. For the first time in centuries, the assembly faced the possibility that they might need to restructure their entire approach to galactic governance. The process wasn't smooth. Several member worlds initially refused to accept humanity's demonstrated superiority. The Dracorian Empire, in particular, demanded proof through combat trials. Humanity's response was both elegant and decisive. They temporarily disabled every Dracorian warship in space simultaneously, not through destructive force but by gently redirecting their propulsion systems to send them on harmless trajectories toward empty space. When the ships were returned to normal function hours later, not a single crew member had been harmed, but the message was unmistakable. "We don't want to rule you," Dr. Vasquez told the chastened assembly. "We want to work with you. But we won't be dismissed or underestimated again." The final transformation began when humanity shared their first major technological gift, a new form of energy generation that worked by tapping into what they called quantum fluctuation resonance. The technology was clean, practically unlimited, and could be adapted to work with existing assembly infrastructure. More importantly, it was offered freely, with no demands for tribute or political concessions. This is what cooperation looks like, Dr. Vasquez explained during the formal presentation. Not domination disguised as mentorship, but genuine partnership between equals. The Assembly's response was unprecedented. For the first time in their 3,000-year history, they formally recognized another civilization as not just an equal but as a leader in specific areas of knowledge. Humanity was invited to establish permanent representatives in the Assembly chambers, with full voting rights and the authority to propose new directions for galactic civilization. Administrator Zeph, his analytical mind finally grasping the full scope of his species' misconceptions, offered the formal apology: "We measured you by our own limitations and found you wanting. We should have measured ourselves by your example and found ourselves lacking." Dr. Vasquez accepted the apology with grace, but her response carried a deeper truth: every civilization develops its own blind spots. Ours is assuming that others are more limited than they appear. Yours was assuming that you were more advanced than you actually were. The key to true advancement isn't avoiding mistakes, it's learning from them quickly enough to adapt. As the great chamber filled with representatives from both human and assembly worlds, planning sessions that would reshape galactic civilization, one truth became clear: the universe was vast enough for multiple forms of intelligence, multiple approaches to advancement, and multiple definitions of what it meant to be truly civilized. The humans had taught the Assembly something more valuable than any technology: that true strength lay not in demonstrating superiority but in recognizing the potential for growth in every encounter. The Assembly had learned that the galaxy was full of surprises, and the most dangerous assumption was believing you had seen everything it had to offer. In the end, Earth's silence had spoken louder than any declaration of power could have. Their patience had been mistaken for weakness, their subtlety for primitiveness, and their cooperation for submission. But in revealing their true capabilities, humanity had given the galaxy something it had never possessed: a vision of what advancement looked like when it was guided by wisdom rather than pride.